What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back in to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arts. We obviously have some things to cover like we do every day. And that first topic is something that's happened, I believe, 2 days ago now. And that is that Chris Boucher is officially a Boston Celtic. Now, few things to break down here. One, they offered him a very small deal, but they are bringing him in for center depth after getting rid of or not signing back Al Cornette and getting rid of Porzingis. So he is a valuable piece for the Celtics. I don't know if he's going to start there. I know they still have Neemias Queta there. So I don't know if he's going to be a starter there, but it was a good signing for them. They did trade Georges Niang in order to bring him in, but that means that he's officially off the market. Denver can't go after him, which sort of points to Denver probably bringing in a backup point guard, if you were to ask me, or maybe another wing that can play the two NBA ball handler off the bench if needed, since they didn't go out and bring in more center depth. And that's something that we're going to talk about, obviously, within the next couple weeks, just because there's a lot to break down when it comes to player profiles and how players are supposed to be for Denver next year, or how we would like them to be next year for Denver. So, like I said, he's officially off the board. I think it's a good signing. I am happy that he is going to the Eastern Conference to stay out of the West and add another big to go against Jokic, especially because of how good he was off the bench for the Raptors. I think he led the franchise in bench points, bench rebounds, bench blocks. Maybe another stat. I could be wrong on the blocks, but I know it was bench points, bench rebounds. So, like I said, I'm happy that he's not going to a contender in the West, and it sort of gives Jokic a little bit of a break from playing another backup center. And I know that Denver has Val now, so you get a break there for Jokic anyway in those quote-unquote non-Jokic minutes. And it's probably going to be the most effective that we've seen since probably the finals run, with Jeff Green there playing the backup role for Jokic. Talking about the potential free agent targets for Denver, we do have community talk earlier in an episode, this episode, and that is actually our second topic. I know we usually wait for the fourth topic to cover at the end of the episode, but Paul had asked me a few episodes ago how I feel about DeAnthony Melton. Now, I broke down Melton earlier in the year. He is somebody I've talked about right as offseason began, because at that time Denver didn't have as much money to spend, and they needed a backup, and they needed to do something that they could afford because MPJ was still on the roster and was taking up majority of the cap. So I think that Melton's a good player. I think that he could bring a lot to Denver's bench. The one thing that gets me nervous, but I mean that this is also what gets me nervous about Malcolm Brogdon, is the injury history. Obviously, the last few years he's been dealing with an injury, or a few injuries, which sort of sidelined him for a little while. But I do think he's good. He's a defensive presence at the point guard position. He's not a bad shooter. I think that Jokic playing with the bench unit at times would be great for him. I think that Val on the bench unit would be great for him. I think that he could be a primary ball handler. But I'm also at the point where I'm fine with Jalen Pickett getting those minutes and maybe bringing in a vet that's not going to take over his minutes entirely, but rather just give him a little bit of a break and sort of guide him in the right direction. If he is going to be one of the two backup point guards with Bruce there, maybe a guy like I've covered before, DeLon Wright, maybe a guy like Campaign. I know there's both former New York Knicks, and it doesn't seem like they're going to sign back. Somebody I brought up, Monte Morris, and I know that everybody broke down Monte saying he's a terrible defender, but if I'm the Denver Nuggets, or if for my take for the backup point guard role would just be somebody that can help Jamal Murray ball handle, and I think I've covered that. But going back to DeAnthony Melton, I think he's a good player. Like I said, I think that he could bring a lot to Denver's bench. The one thing that's holding me back from really breaking him down and saying that I think he'd be great on Denver is the fact that he's already supposedly verbally committed to the Golden State Warriors, but there's a lot going on in Golden State as well. Obviously, we know that there's Jonathan Kuminga drama, and Kuminga is somebody who I don't know what's really going on with him in the Warriors world. I think he's valuable. I don't think he's as valuable as they're making him seem, because they don't even play him. So to not give him up to the Kings, which seemed like a done deal the other day, for a guy like Malik Monk, or maybe to the Suns if they offered a good package for him. So I think DeAnthony Melton's going to go to the Warriors, but I'm also interested to see what the drama holds, and if that makes it impossible for them to make a deal for the DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford, because those are two of the three people who verbally committed to them. If somehow DeAnthony Melton is still available and Golden State's not able to get it done because of the Kuminga holdout or contract talks and non-trade, then I would love for Denver to bring him in, especially he's not going to be worth much because he is on a prove-it year because he's a vet and he is dealing with his injury history, missing majority of the season. I think he'd be great in Denver. I think that he'd be a good backup point guard. I also think that he could play the 2 a little bit. I know that he's not the biggest guy in the world for the 2, but he could be a good backup 1 and 2. Now, something that he could bring to the table is pretty good shooting, and pretty good scoring, and pretty good defense. And now I want to talk about what the Denver Nuggets need to work on, in my opinion, in this offseason. Now, I was going through the stat breakdowns from last year, and this is something I talked about, I believe, either last episode or 2 episodes ago. Denver was dead last in three-point attempted last year. They were 28th in 3 points made. They shot super efficiently. They're 5th best team percentage-wise when it came to the 3-point. When it came to the 3-point shot last year. And watching somebody like Christian Braun, who's been posting a lot this offseason about his 3-point shooting, his shot looks so much better than what I've seen the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot better than he did last year because last year he was super efficient. He was able to get it done from the 3-point line. And like I've covered throughout the offseason, we may see a little bit less shooting from Christian Braun strictly because we don't know what this offense is going to look like. And that's something I'm going to break down in a little bit in this next topic. But guys like Christian Braun, guys like Peyton Watson, who also have came out or have had the organization come out and break down that the hitch in his shot is gone. He looks like a better shooter. Obviously, Denver has been losing games strictly because they're getting outshot from the 3-point line, and it proves how viable or how important it is for today's day and age of NBA game. So Denver needs to figure something out. I think that, like I said, Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be massive. Cam Johnson's going to be massive. If Peyton Watson can figure out that hitch, maybe you bring in a guy like Melton. Maybe you bring in a guy like Monte, where that he comes in and is able to hit some threes around a guy like Jokic, even in those bench minutes. Around a guy like Jokic, a guy like Val, and maybe Val is able to extend his game a little bit again. I know in Sacramento he didn't shoot the ball as well. So maybe he's able to take the step and shoot the 3 ball again off the bench and help Denver out from that aspect of the game. And now this next topic I do want to talk about is obviously, like I said, the field goals. Now, Denver is in the bottom half of the NBA statistically last year in field goals attempted. They were 16th, which is one under the bottom half, actually. They were the first team in field goals made. They shot the best in the NBA from the field. Just about everybody on Denver was efficient last season, realistically. But the one thing that I did think about with the pressers earlier this offseason is that David Adelman wants to slow down the Denver offense, which is something that Denver thrived with last year, is Jokic getting the ball, throwing an outlet pass, and somebody scoring down on the other side of the court. Now, I don't know if that's going to take a toll on their field goal attempts, but maybe that raises their 3-point attempts, and if they're able to shoot that super efficient, then more wins come with that, because like I covered last episode, the statistic, I'm not sure, I don't know if I have it here, what the exact record was. Yeah, so they were outscored by the 3 ball in 55 games last season, and they were 22-5 when they weren't outscored from the 3 ball. So I am interested to see if David Adelman's slowing down of the pace leads to less field goals attempted. And I know it's going to sound weird, more 3-point field goals attempted, and maybe Denver's able to bring home a couple more wins and hammer the over on that win total, and that's something I will cover in the next few episodes. Anyway, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for checking out. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below if you guys want me to cover anything, and I will catch you guys next episode.